We've reached the final team, the very final team in our double trouble. The New York Giants, the G-Men, one of the proud franchises in the NFL. And we begin with the Giants with Eli Manning. Eli Manning is being undrafted in over 85% of leagues. Matthew, you have him at 23. I've got him at 30. Hang on
for a second. I've been told I need to retweet something. Hold on. Keep talking.
Okay. I've got him at 30. You've got him at 23. The consensus ranks have him at 27. There are some people who believe a bounce-back year could be in store for Eli Manning. Do you buy that idea at all, Matthew?
A little bit. I mean, I'm at QB 23. I mean, getting obviously Odell Beckham Jr. back.
That helps.
Another year of Evan Engram, Sterling Shepard, Saquon Barkley in the backfield, and Pat Shurmur. I mean, Pat Shurmur got a career year out of Case Keenum last year. Do we really think that think about where Case Keenum was in his career last year, a year ago today?
Yep.
Are we saying that Eli Manning, and I get it, he has seen his better days, but do we really think Eli Manning is worse than what Case Keenum was a year ago?
No, I would not say that people would view Eli Manning as an inferior player to where Case Keenum was a year ago. The reality is this. You're not drafting Eli Manning. He's being undrafted in 85% of leagues. And if Eli Manning has an early season surge, you either already have a good quarterback on your roster or you can pick him up on the waiver wire. Don't need to be too concerned about Eli Manning, what it means for himself. But Saquon Barkley is the player that everybody is talking about, along with, well, a couple other Giants too. But, Stephania, before we get into the upside or the impact of Saquon Barkley, he has been dealing with an injury at the moment.
Yeah, a hamstring strain. And not serious by all accounts, and he's been back at practice now. So the Giants have to be happy to see him out there running around and doing some work, working individually at this point in time. I still think you're not going to see him in the preseason. That's generally the expectation. I've said this before. You don't want a guy to have something minor turn into something major, but certainly looks like he'll be ready to go week one.
Matthew, I don't think we need to lay out a bunch of stats and figures and anecdotes about why Saquon Barkley is going to be really good. Number 2 overall pick in the real NFL draft for a reason. I think the question is merely this. There are still some people that don't believe in the idea of drafting Saquon Barkley as a top 5, 6, maybe even 7 player. Are you officially at the point now where I think maybe the most asked question could be, if you had the 5th pick in a draft, and the first 4 running backs are off the board, Le'Veon Bell, Todd Gurley.
I'm taking Antonio Brown.
There's the question I was going to ask you. Antonio Brown versus Saquon Barkley. But, would you have an issue with someone taking Saquon Barkley?
I would not, and the next running back that I would draft would be Saquon Barkley. So I have him as RB5. I have him ahead of Kamara. I have him ahead of Kareem Hunt.
Yep.
And, it's interesting. Louis Riddick, former front office person in the NFL, obviously NFL insider, really tight end. He talked about this. He called it on the marathon. He called it what was the word he used? He used sponsorship.
He has insane love
sponsorship.
For Saquon.
Sponsorship, and I refer to it as sort of the internal politics of a football team. But what Louis and I are talking about is the same thing, which is that the Giants as an organization need Saquon to work.
They do.
From the ownership to the front office, the coaching staff, they need Saquon to work. And it doesn't mean they can force it to work. What it does mean is that he will be given every possible opportunity, from volume to play calling and everything in between, to be a success this year on the field. He is going to get as good a chance as any rookie running back ever, I think, in terms of to be a success fantasy-wise. I'm a believer in Pat Shurmur and the fantasy office. Against, you saw what he did with Dalvin Cook and Jerick McKinnon and Latavius Murray last year, where he's in Philadelphia as well. He's always been top 6 in terms of red zone rush percentage, in terms of last year over 100 targets to running backs here. It's a very fantasy-friendly offense that Pat Shurmur runs for pass-catching running backs, of which Saquon Barkley is one. I think they've improved their offensive line a little bit. And also, I just think from a defensive coordinator standpoint, it'd be tough to figure. They've suddenly got some weapons. I think they're going to be able to stretch the field, obviously, with Shepard, Engram, and Beckham.
Just quickly, not because of the hamstring injury, but it does remind us that handcuffs in fantasy can often be an important thing. Would you take a handcuff if you draft Saquon Barkley? And who would it be in the Giants running back group?
That's interesting. Probably Wayne Gallman would be my handcuff.
Okay.
I mean, it'd be interesting if something were to happen to Saquon. I think it would be a split between him and Jonathan Stewart. Jonathan Stewart's not a pass catcher.
Right.
A Shermer offense needs a pass catching running back. Again, they were during his stops in both Philadelphia and Minnesota, running backs averaged over 5 catches per game under Pat Shurmur. And Gallman's a better pass catcher than Jonathan Stewart. I think it would be more of a committee there. So I guess in PPR, I guess Gallman, but I don't feel strongly about that.
So the point is, if you don't know for sure, I feel like I would take Jonathan Stewart personally, but I'm not so sold on it that if I do draft Saquon Barkley, I am unquestionably utilizing a late round pick on it. Odell Beckham Jr. is one of the most electrifying players that I've ever seen on a football field. Stephania, last year he missed much of the season because of an ankle injury. He has not yet played in a preseason game and may not play in a preseason game. And yet, where do we stand on his ankle injury and his rehab?
I'm about as confident as I can be on a player who hasn't played in a preseason game. This is the final test. It's always a little bit different when you're in game action compared to just working with your defenders on your own team, because nobody's going to rough you up the way they will in a game. And you will always want to see the contact after somebody goes down with a contact injury to prove that they're basically over any apprehension or fear, whatever you want to call it, that they're comfortable being in the same situation, getting taken down, getting back up. And it kind of gives the player a sense of like, I'm okay. But everything about the way that Odell Beckham is moving on the field, the sharp cuts, the going up in the air, leaping backwards and falling down. I mean, all the agility things that are so critical to the way he plays his game, we've seen. So, like I said, it's about as good as I can feel about a player who hasn't seen actual game action.
And we know that not just the injury that has kept him off the field in game action, but perhaps the contract. We know that he's looking for a new deal, and hat tip to our buddy Jordan Ronan, who covers the Giants for us at ESPN.com and does a great job reporting yesterday. They made some progress. So it could be that Odell Beckham Jr. is not only back on the field in week 1, but he's very well paid. And I think it's pertinent to note paying wide receivers for this reason. 5 of the 8 highest paid wide receivers in the NFL were all taken in the 2014 NFL draft. And typically when you are paid a lot of money, it means you're a really good player. Mike Evans, Brandon Cooks, Sammy Watkins, Jarvis Landry, Devontae Adams. I'd say all pretty good players. Odell Beckham Jr.'s missed 17 games in his career. 17. He was also drafted in 2014. He's got 6 more receiving touchdowns than any of those players. Think about that. He's played less. He's scored more. He is an absolute touchdown maker. I think a monster year is ahead for Odell Beckham.
I think, too,
Jr.
if you look at their willingness, if this is going to really be a record-breaking deal, which is what is being hinted at, you think the Giants are paying that to someone if they don't think that they're returning to their prior level of form? I mean, I think that what they've seen of him, and credit to him in terms of the work he put in the offseason and what he showed in camp, that's probably why they're willing to pay him that money, because they believe they're going to get the same player back.
He's a rock star. I mean, honestly.
Oh, hey, Mike, Matthew, why don't we turn your microphone back on real fast?
He's a rock star. Sorry.
Thank you. That's all right.
I came back from New Orleans with like this cough. I don't know what's going on, so I'm trying to spare America.
Whooping cough?
It's a little bit of
whooping cough.
It's a little bit of that beignet powder, the powder from the beignet.
It might be. It's a little dry throat.
The
Too much
beignets are
time on Bourbon Street
revolting.
for Uncle Matty there, you know?
You know what? I didn't even get to go to Bourbon Street. We were so busy.
You're old.
Don't worry, your son's going to go plenty for both of you.
I know.
Don't even worry about it.
Don't remind him of that, Daniel. Let's get to the other pieces of the Giants receiving group.
I met somebody else. I just real quickly. I met somebody else. A fan came up and had told me this person said they had just graduated from Tulane. What are you doing in town? I'm like, oh, my son's gonna be a freshman at Tulane. And they said, oh, I just graduated from Tulane. It's a great school. I said, oh, great, that's nice. And so I say to this person, I say, what's one piece of advice you wish you had known going into Tulane that you know now? And I'm thinking like, hey, maybe I'll get some great insight that I can share with my son. Maybe I can, and the person goes, that fake IDs work on Bourbon Street. That's what I wish I knew when I was 18. Like, great, perfect.
Did he say that in front of your son?
Yes, great. I turned to him and was like, don't. So we'll see.
That's a super dad question.
I know.
But
It's
really,
just like,
but it's
then
cute.
you're like in that awkward spot. Yeah.
Let's get to the other Giants wide receivers, beginning with Sterling Shepard, a really talented player in his 3rd year, a slot beast. But Matthew, I think the question becomes this, and I guess in some ways it'd be nice if we did these out of order here, but he might be the third passing game target in this offense, maybe even the fourth if you believe Saquon Barkley is going to feast in the passing game. Can Sterling Shepard crave enough of a role to be on the redraft radar?
He certainly could. I mean, again, you think about Pat Shurmur's offense, you think about what Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs, to a lesser extent, did out of the slot last year, and that's where Shepard's going to play the majority of his snaps, I believe, this year. Per game basis, no one has averaged more slot points per game since 2016 than Sterling Shepard, 11 points per game. And we've heard the quotes from Eli Manning talking about Sterling Shepard's going to have a monster year. I'm nervous about the volume given Beckham, given Evan Engram, given Saquon Barkley, but would it shock me? No. It certainly wouldn't. He's currently going as a wide receiver 5. I do think he's going to be one of those sneaky, he'd be a sneaky best ball play. He's going to be a sneaky DFS play. He'll be, really cheap. It would be surprising to me if he carved out consistent value, but for 16-team leagues, I think you could see it. I like him as a player.
I do, yeah.
Oh, yeah. But I just think back to last year when Odell Beckham was hurt and everybody thought automatically you were going to see this rise in Sterling Shepard. And Evan Engram was volume consistent. And
Shepard also got banged up, too.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just going to say that. He had a chunk where he missed a few games during part of that. He had the migraine issues dealing with and some other things. However, when he was out there, he did have one big game, Week 15, Philadelphia, 11 catches, 140 yards and a touchdown. But that gives me pause.
Yeah, I think the lack of touchdowns is what concerns me most, and then the quarterback play. I just don't know that I count on Eli Manning sustaining.
I'll say this, though. I do believe that there will be a fantasy productive second pass catcher on the Giants after Odell Beckham Jr. And it would not surprise me if it were Shepard instead of Evan Engram. Right now, I think most people are and I'm one of them, expecting Engram over Shepard. But it certainly wouldn't surprise me if that were reversed.
I'm waffling
here a little bit here on National Waffle Day. It is hashtag National Waffle Day.
Pretty good social media awareness by you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Somebody told you that.
Yeah, someone definitely said that in his ear. Good job, Daniel. I'm assuming
it's not. That did not happen. Secret squirrel.
Don't foil our story. Let's just assume that it actually happened.
It did not.
Okay, anyways.
Listen, if you're going to point out my social media faux pas with my beignet photo, although I would still argue that was a success, 374 comments and counting.
Thanks.
Nobody can spin a failure into a success.
I get to I get to enjoy my celebrate my victories here on National Waffle Day. So I'm waffling a little bit here on Shepard versus Engram. But
let's talk about Engram for a moment because Engram last year, 173.6 fantasy points last season, ADP of 6th amongst tight ends, top 5 for me. Matthew, in a relative term, you're a little bit down on Evan Engram.
Yeah, I have him at tight end 9 here. I'm concerned. I think there's going to be some touchdown regression. You think about last year when Shepard was banged up, obviously Beckham out for the year. They had no run game to speak of. The defense was awful. They got into all these shootouts here. And so Evan Engram obviously had this, magical rookie season as a fantasy tight end. But from week 11 on last year, he was tight end 10. I'm at tight end 9. He scored on 85.7% of his red zone receptions. Scored on 6 to 7 of them. The league average for a tight end is 56.3%. I think there is some regression coming in terms of scoring. Get this. Thirsty Kyle did this for me. Nice job, Thirsty Kyle.
What else is new?
Yeah. Thirsty Kyle. If Evan Engram had 9 less catches, 100 less yards, and 2 less touchdowns, not a lot. I mean, he played 15 games last year, so basically 15 less yards a game, half a catch less a game, and 2 less touchdowns, he would have been tight end 10 last season. Gives you, again, it's not tough to be a top 10 tight end. But yeah, I have Evan Engram at 9. I'm nervous about him. There are others I prefer. Give me some Trey Burton. Give me the risk of Jordan Reed. Look, wouldn't shock me if Jack Doyle outperforms him this year.
I'm just so impressed with the player. Think about the trial by fire 100%. He endured last year.
Great player. Love the kid.
Not just a rookie tight end, where we know historically there's been a really slow process of immediate contributions, but also in an offense that had nobody else. Like if defenses wanted to take away the Giants' best player last year, they turned to number 88, Evan Engram. I'm just really impressed with the player overall, which is why I keep him in my top 5 for upside purposes mostly.